Hi guys, it's Adam. This is the fourth time I've tried to record this video, and hopefully it goes well today. But we're going to start a new series today on my channel called Plant Profiles. And in this series, we're going to be breaking down different types of plants and just like getting to know just like the general care and a little bit of info about them and why I like them and why they're in my collection. So we're going to start this series off with Crassulas, which are probably the most well-known genus of succulents ever. And the Crassula genus has the jade plant. So I'm going to show you my jade plants. I have 3 of them. We're going to start with the Crassula ovata, which is the common jade plant, Chinese money tree, good luck plant. I've had mine for, I believe, 3 years, and it is doing absolutely wonderful. This thing thrives. I mean, just look at how nice that guy looks. Very proud of it. Really do like this plant. And then I have another ovata, which is actually a cultivar of ovata called Minima. So this is my Minima, and it is quite large. So this is Crassula ovata Minima, and the reason we call it Minima is because the leaves are a lot smaller than that of the common jade. Common jade grows very slowly. Most jades do. But if you want one that grows quicker, get a Minima, because these ones do tend to get larger quicker. Then the last type of jade that I have looks nothing like this. I have a stacking jade, Crassula preferata, which has more triangular, pointy leaves, and the leaves are very close together, and they look like they stack, which is why we call it a stacking Crassula. And mine, when I cut it back, it started to variegate, so very happy with that. So jades, as you can see with the stacking jade, come also in variegated forms. The common jade has several variegated varieties as well, if you'd like one of those. I only have some solid ones for these, but these are honestly probably the easiest thing to grow ever, and there's a reason these are so common. So as far as temperature goes, normal room temperature is okay with them. Like, they adapt to anything. So in the winter, they just sit in my windowsills, and there's really no extra care needed for them. And then as far as lighting goes, make sure they have a bright light. Either south or west is best for them. And then in the summer, I just put them outside in the sun, and they do absolutely great. As far as watering goes and feeding, for these two, the common jade ovata types, neglect is key. In the summer, I don't really water them ever, except for once a month when I feed them, which isn't even necessary, but I just use a standard liquid fertilizer for them once a month, or honestly just whenever I remember to. But as far as watering goes, I just let the rain take care of that. In some years, there's not a lot of rain. Some years, there's more than others. But in the summer, they only get watered when it rains. And then in the winter, in the fall and winter, I only think I watered about 3 times. From around September or October all the way to March or April, I only water my normal ovata jades like 3 times in all of those months. So once every 2.5 months, I guess. But they thrive off of neglect, and the only time you really need to water them is when the leaves look wrinkled. Like, if they start to pucker up, and then the leaves start to bend. Like, these leaves are a sign that this jade is well watered, because they're nice and firm. But if you go like that, and there's give, and they fold up, that's when you know you need to water it. But that doesn't happen very often, because they are fantastic at storing water, both in their fleshy leaves, and their older plants have these nice thick trunks. So there's really no need to water them more than once every few months, especially in the winter when they're not really actively growing. And feeding is not necessary, but if you'd like to, you can. My stacking Crassula, my stacking Jade, definitely is a little more thirsty than my Minima and my Ovada. The stacking Jades are a little bit thinner leaved, and I'd say watering once a month at all times of year is kind of necessary for them. And then, again, feeding isn't quite necessary, but this one I definitely do remember to feed once a month in the summer, just because, you know, it's with my other succulents that I do feed. These two are kind of off on their own because they don't really need anything special. But yeah, there's really not a lot you need to do with these guys other than give them adequate light and water when they start to wrinkle. But don't water them until they're about to be dehydrated. Make sure that the soil is well draining. I like to use a soil mixture that is normal potting mix that's, you know, peat moss based. And I like to add a lot of perlite and a lot of sand so that it really, really drains well. These jades, like all plants, need a container with drainage holes at the bottom. Absolutely a must. Absolute necessity. And very well draining soil mixtures. If the soil stays wet too long, they will die. Excuse me, but the main thing you have to know about these is that you need to water sparingly, so that shouldn't really be a problem as long as your soil mixture is a nice peat-based mixture. And then repotting, they like to be root bound, so the only reasons why you would want to repot your jade plant are if the roots are really, really growing through the drainage holes, which these aren't. Or in this case, my Minima has to be leaned up against something because it's so top heavy that it can't stand up on its own. So I'm going to have to move this to a new pot. But only ever go a size up. Never give it anything that's too large for it. And make sure the medium is very, very well draining. I suppose there's not a lot to talk about with care for a jade plant, so I think the last thing we want to talk about is the propagation and how to make another jade plant. So before I go on to that, I will say jade plants, while being easy to propagate, are also a plant that I like to give away as gifts to people. I like to give cuttings to people all the time with these because they're so easy to grow and so easy to multiply. Jade plants are one of those plants, like, you know how some families, they have a plant that gets handed down from generation to generation to generation? Well, a lot of times that's a jade plant, and I kind of want to start that tradition. And if I do, like, give a plant to my kids, I know I can depend on my jade plants to stay alive for years and years and years. Like, jades live to be hundreds of years old when cared for well, and they thrive off of neglect, so they're perfect for that. But for propagating and making more, if you can get your jade plant to flower and produce seeds, I guess you could grow it that way. I don't pretend to know more than I actually do, so I have no idea how to get a jade plant to flower. And it's one of those succulents I really don't care about the flowers. It's so pretty on its own. So if you want to know how to make it flower, Google it, search it up. I can't give you that information. But sorry guys, my video cut out. So part 2, welcome back. For propagating a jade, it's actually very easy. If you can get it to flower, go ahead, but I don't know how to do that, as I said in the previous video. So I like to do it from cuttings, and there's 2 types of cuttings that you can take with a jade plant. Number 1 is a stem cutting. So let's say we have a jade here, like we have this stem, and you could cut it right here, remove the lowermost leaves, so like this one, and this one, and then you let it dry for a couple of days. just put it in a box in like your closet for about a week. And then you can stick it into some well-draining soil and then grow it like a normal plant. And that works really well. That's how a lot of people do it. But then there's even another way, but you have to have a lot of patience for this. You could literally take a single leaf off. So let's say you take a cutting and you have those 3 leaves that you took off, those bottommost leaves. Literally just throw them on top of some soil. Just throw them on, and don't even bother watering the soil. Just use a spray bottle to spray the leaves and make sure there's moisture on the leaves, and you can grow a new plant. And within a couple weeks, it'll start shooting out little pink roots, and then eventually you'll get a growth bud and some more leaves. But it will take years and years and years to get a decent-sized jade plant from that. So if you're not patient, just make stem cuttings. Sorry about the noise. We're having a project done in our house, but you could even, there's multiple cuttings inside this one little plant. So if you really wanted to just take this whole thing out, I could remove this whole thing from the soil and just pry this shoot from the rest of the plant and take that out as well. I guess it's not truly division since there's actually more than one cutting, but you could just take a single stem out of a pot with multiple cuttings. But as far as propagating like a jade from cuttings, you can also do that with a stacking jade. I cut this off yesterday, and I just lay that on top of the soil like so. And that is why there's such a full pot, because I do that all the time. And then when you cut it, new shoots come out. So that's really all there is to know about jade plants. They are quite easy to grow, one of the easiest plants that you can possibly take care of. So I hope this video inspires you guys to go out and buy your own jade, or if you have one and you're worried that you're not doing anything right, just remember neglect is key. Especially in the winter, just forget about it. And then in the summer, just throw it outside and let the rain take care of it, really. It's a very slow growing plant, so there's really not a lot of need to prune it until it gets really big, like my minima, which I put back over there because I was tired of holding it. But yeah, there's really not much to it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.